Good afternoon, and welcome to this service of worship and thanksgiving in celebration of the life of Carol Sandblom, beloved mother and grandmother, great-grandmother, of course, beloved wife, and beloved friend to all of us gathered here today. When we talk about pillars of the community, this is what we're talking about. It's an honor and privilege to be here with you today in celebration of Carol's life. And of course, it was not that long ago that we were here celebrating Joe's life in just this way. So we know what we're here to do. And we know that the good news is that we are here together to do it. That we are not alone in these moments. And that we are in a welcoming, warm, and familiar place that Carol knew as home. Carol and Joe knew together. And so it's good to be together in this space. It's the same words, in part, these days, because when we go through these things, we know what it's like. These are the days that take us to what's behind and what's ahead. We've got one mother. That's how it goes in the world. And so we don't know what it's like to be in the world without Carol in it. That's the hard truth of this day. And as I said before, we do ourselves no favors by not being honest about the sadness and the pain that's part of this day. When you see the photos downstairs, if you haven't already, you'll see what I saw. And I never even met Carol in the flesh. You'll see that she was an embodied person, full of life, clearly, as all those photos show. This awesome photo. She's supporting Joe on her lap in this photo. I hear she knew how to give hugs. She knew how to be there, in her body, in her best for the people that she loved, for all of us. And so the embodied Carol, the mother and the grandmother that hugged you, that held her husband in her lap, that held us in hard times with a smile, with eyes that said, I'm here, with her warmth of spirit, all the ways in which she held forth. The embodied Carol is no more. With her beloved husband, the embodied Carol has passed. And that's the hardest truth of today. I don't need to invite us to do what's the first thing we do at these moments, which is to make room for sadness. It's here with us, and that's okay. It's how it goes, and we can feel what's hard to feel because we're not alone. We know on these days, too, that sadness is not the only feeling to feel. It's hard to age up. Losing one's sense of self, one's mind, is maybe the hardest way of all. Not easy. Joe, he knew it wasn't easy, and he wanted you to be there for his bride, your mom, your grandmother. We can give thanks knowing that there's no more suffering that affects Carol in body or in spirit. She is beyond that place where there is embodied suffering, no pain. With Joe, in peace, with all who've gone on before, in peace and in love. That's a good thing. We can make room for that sense of relief knowing that there's no pain. We also make room for the feeling of just goodness. You were there for your mom, your grandmother. Joe was there for her. We heard all about that in his service, the way he wanted you to be there for Carol. And you were. She was not alone. She had you, her loving family, with her through thick and thin, especially in the hard times at the end. She had this whole community with her, too, backing her up, backing her family up. We can feel good knowing she was never alone, that she had the things she needed, especially in the final months and years, that she was not alone, surrounded by love. Above all, what we do in these days is we make room for joy. It's a crazy thing to make room for joy when our hearts are heavy. But the reality is, a long life has so much good and love in it. Even short lives do, but a life as long and full of carols, those pictures downstairs tell the story. So much joy and love. So alongside of our sadness, we make room for all the feelings we feel. Grief, one big ball of wax. Not one thing or another, both and. Sadness and joy, tears and smiles and even laughter too. We know that we're going to laugh because we did at Joe's service. So much joy in celebrating their lives well lived. We're going to do the things we always do on these days. We're going to hear songs that Carol loved. We've already heard two of them in the prelude. Somebody like me stands up and offers prayers and blessings and words of welcome. We're going to hear some readings, words that connect us to all those who have been here before. We're not alone. And above all, we're going to tell stories. We're going to share what we know of who this woman has been to you and to all of us. A few people are going to share the stories here, and then when we're downstairs, we're going to keep talking to each other. We're going to look at those photos and say, I remember. I know. I got that hug once upon a time. I know what it was like to be in the presence of this woman. We share stories, and that's how we know we're not alone. And that's how the little ones who don't have the ability to talk yet, or at least not to tell whole stories maybe, that's how they hear and know who came before. That's how Carol's love and Joe's and all the saints who've gone on before, it's how it keeps going through the stories we tell, passing along that love with tears and with laughter. So we're going to do it. We're going to tell those stories. I only know Carol through the stories that you've shared with me. I didn't get to meet her. I certainly didn't get to know her at her best. I know what Peter shared with me and what I heard from Joe's service. I know she was a rock for her family, especially in that very hard time of the passing of her son, Scott. She was there. She kept things together. I know from the church folk that she was a rock here too, someone who kept things going, one of those glue people that holds things together, holds people together through thick and thin. Peter told me that she had a key role in the life of this church and in this town. She was on the search committee that a long time ago brought Gary Ritz, the former pastor here. And she was on the search committee that brought Mike Gill, the health education teacher at the high school through the 80s and 90s here to town. So, religion and sex education, both right there together. She did her part to, again, like glue, bringing people together, bringing good people into good places to do good things. She cared about all of us here. That's why we're here to do this. That's what I know. I'm looking forward to hearing more, hearing your stories, your testimonies to who Carol is to you, so that I can know her too, through spirit and through story. It's not easy to do this work, but we're here together, and we can do it. Let's lean in a spirit of love. Let's lean into a word of prayer. Would you join me? God of love, we give thanks for this day. Even this day, though it is a hard day, we give thanks because we are here together. We give thanks for Carol's family, for the ways they have welcomed us to celebrate and remember with them. We give thanks for Joe, and we bless his memory, knowing that he is here with us in spirit. As our hearts are heavy, we pray that you would comfort us. Remind us that we are not alone, that all the love we have ever known surrounds us and holds us close. And as our hearts feel the possibility of joy, may we have the strength to smile and even laugh. May we do these things with the joy and the strength that Carol lived her life. We pray all of these things in the name of Jesus, who taught his followers to pray, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Would you stand, as is comfortable to do, and join in the singing of hymn number 425, all three verses, In the Garden. seated. Will you join me in reading together, printed in the program, the words of Psalm 23? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
An Irish prayer. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away into the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way you always used to. Laugh as you always laughed at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, and pray for me. Let my name be the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without the trace of shadow on it. Life means all it has ever meant. It is the same as it was. There is absolutely unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of your mind because I am out of your sight? I am but waiting for you for an interval somewhere near, just around the corner. All is well, nothing is past, nothing is lost. One brief moment and all will be as it was before, only better. Infinitely happier and forever, we will be one together, one with Christ.
So this is a quote that our Grammy wanted somebody to read at her service. It's by Professor Maurice Schwartz. As long as we can love each other and remember the feeling of love that we had, we can die without ever really going away. All of the love you created is still there. All of the memories are still there. You live on in the hearts of everyone you touched and nurtured while you were here. Death ends a life, not a relationship.
Grammy always told me that I was her favorite granddaughter. I was her only granddaughter, but I still hold that title as her favorite with pride. There are so many memories that I could share today about Grammy. I had to think long and hard about my favorite ones, so I figured I would start with the memories that were extra special with just the two of us. There were some things that we got to do together that the boys just didn't have an interest in, like learning how to sew. As many of you know, Grammy loved to sew. She made quilts, pillows, and my favorite, Christmas tree skirts for this very church. Though I was never really into the arts and crafts, when I was old enough, Grammy started to teach me. I wasn't always the best and much rather spent my time looking through and organizing all of her cute fabrics, but Grammy was extremely patient. I remember the two of us sitting down at the sewing machine in the basement of the Hull House and practicing putting two pieces of fabric together. Grammy would guide me through it and of course fix all of my many mistakes that I made. In middle school, Grammy helped me sew two quilts and a pillow, which I gave to my grandparents and my Lella for Christmas that year. I remember Grammy watching me proudly as my family opened their handmade gifts on Christmas morning. I am so grateful to have gotten to learn and experience something that she loved so much with her by my side. Another special topic that Grammy and I had got to connect on was teaching. Grammy taught for a few years before starting her lifelong career as an amazing mother to her 4 children. Although her teaching career was short, she had many great stories to share with me about her years in the classroom, like when she had twins who switched places on her for a whole day and she never realized. As I entered college and began my own teaching career, I would come home from holiday breaks or summer vacation, and it would be my turn to share all of my stories with her. She always asked me if I had twins in my class and to make sure I watched out for them if I did. There are endless memories that were shared among Grammy, myself, and the boy cousins as well. One of my absolute favorite things that Grammy did for her 7 grandchildren was the Book of the Month Club. Every month, she gave each grandchild a new book based on our age, reading level, and interest until we were 12 years old. Every month felt like Christmas when we received our books, and we were so excited to start reading. It has been 14 years since my last book was given to me, and I still have a love for reading that Grammy helped instill into me from such a young age. I was so lucky to have someone who valued the importance of reading and cared so much for her grandchildren to do this for so many years. Toby and I were extra lucky because we lived so close to Grammy and Grampy our whole lives. Even more so because they took care of us after school and in the summer 1 day a week. I remember Grammy being so patient and loving, and the excitement I felt when the bus pulled up to our street and I saw Grammy's car sitting on the bottom of the hill. This always meant that we were going to have a fun afternoon. Whether we were baking banana bread or Christmas cookies, playing mini golf, riding the carousel, playing Rummy Cube, hucking strawberries for the Arts Festival strawberry shortcakes, or eating our Friendly's ice cream sundaes before lunch, which we called Backwards Day, which we did today. Whatever we were doing together didn't matter, because I just loved spending time with her. However, it may be hard to believe that Toby and I weren't always perfect children. And we did not always get along, even when my grandparents were watching us. One day, we were arguing so much that Grammy got up, walked into the living room, and sat down on the couch. She told us that she put herself in timeout because of our poor behavior. Toby and I could not believe that she would willingly put herself into timeout, but looking back on this memory, and as an adult who works with children all day, I can now completely relate to her decision. It's safe to say that Grammy's patience and love for us exceeded any frustration she may have had during our sibling moments. Fast forward to when Toby and I got our license, which meant we didn't need to be picked up from school or shuffled to one of our many sporting events. We did not stop visiting Grammy and Grampy in home. We frequently popped over just to say hi, and oftentimes there was a freshly baked loaf of banana bread on the counter waiting for us. I could always count on the basket in the cabinet above the fridge to be stocked with Werther's hard candies and the original flavored Trident gum in the blue packaging. We could also count on Grammy to be standing at the door on our way out. I would look out the rearview mirror and see her smiling and waving until we were out of sight. Although the last handful of years has brought a lot of change for Grammy and our family, I truly believe that deep down there was not much that actually changed about who she was as the matriarch of our family. When I reflect on these most recent years, my mind fills with the many happy memories instead of the challenges. Like every time I witness Grammy's beaming smile when Grampy walked through the door of Linden Pond and they gave each other a kiss, I felt this overwhelming sense of comfort. For 25 years, I saw that their love was so strong, nothing could come between it. No matter what happened, no matter what challenges they faced, they would do it together. Or when Dad would make Grammy belly laugh over the silliest things, or when Toby and I would receive Grammy's famous wink and smile, up until our very last visits. In all those moments, I understood that Grammy hasn't changed as much as we thought she did. She built a foundation of love for her family as a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and she never once lost that love in all the years that I had the privilege of knowing her. Nothing could stand in the way of her loving her family up until her very last kiss and breath surrounded by her kids. She will always be an inspiration for the kind of wife, mother, and grandmother I hope to be in my life. I will continue to think of these memories that I share with Grammy every single day for the rest of my life, and I will continue to do everything I can to make her proud. I know Grammy is exactly where she needs to be right now, with Grampy, Scott, and the rest of her family and friends who love her just as much as we do. I'm eternally grateful and blessed that out of all the people in this world, I had the privilege to be her only and favorite granddaughter.
Well, that's a tough act to follow. Nice job, Meg. Now I'm going to go off script a little bit, which probably makes Liz cringe, but, today, when there's a day like today, and I see the people that have come, and, having most of us able to make it here, and those I know that aren't here from our family or here in spirit, and, to see, my first cousins, my Uncle Bob's kids here. It would have been a perfect day for Mom, having all of us together. And also just the weather and, nice, warm but cool day. I can see Mom when she was a kid and a teenager, out on Grandpa's boat or at the beach, or going down to Florida when they went down and putting Crisco on, because she had to get her tan. Which in fact led to later years of her, spending time on our boat, but being totally covered with, a hat and long sleeves or out in the garden gardening. So thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate it. To say I had the greatest mother in the history of the world is an understatement. Even as she gradually slipped away from us over the past few years, Mom gave me more, even during that time, that I could ever give her. Every time I walked into Linden Ponds or Rose Court the last couple of years, she just made me feel like I was somebody special. And, she was the rock of our family, adoring all of us, especially my father. Her love was unconditional, and her main goal in life was to make those she loved happy. She had high expectations for all of us: work hard, be kind, and have faith in God and His teachings. Mom also had a very unassuming way about her, but she was a silent leader. Strong, kind, loving, sweet, and caring, she was quiet but steadfast and fully devoted presence in all of our lives. Many who knew her have shared wonderful memories, and some were devoted to her family. Her smile was infectious, selfless and amazing person, kind soul, simply wonderful. So I appreciate everyone's thoughts about that. But, Mom was born in Quincy, and her brother Bob and her were loved and nurtured by Ruthie and Wally, our grandparents in Squantum. From my grandparents, they learned the importance of faith and family. And after graduating from North Quincy High, Mom attended Wheelock and, as Meg said, taught briefly in Scituate. Hi, Charlie. That's the great-grandson right there. The story of the carol I knew as Mom began when my dad, waiting for my mom's then boyfriend to leave town, took her and a friend out for ice cream. And as a result of everyone sitting in the first three rows here, the rest is history. Just a couple years later, on June 27, 1959, Mom and Dad were married and began to build a life together at 18 Rustic, where they started our family, and Mom quickly became known as the go-to mom of the neighborhood. Once again, kind, caring, and welcoming to everybody. Growing up, my siblings and I knew that we had hit the gene jackpot. Mom was always there for us, putting our well-being above her own. Each morning, it was like Leave It to Beaver. She made us our breakfast. She sent us out with our lunches. And when we got off on the bus in the afternoon in the Cowan's driveway, Mom would be there to greet us with a hug and ask about how our day was. Mom's summers were spent on the back porch listening to the Red Sox and telling stories of her second love of her life, Ted Williams, and looking forward to our yearly trips to Florida and her numerous trips to Danbury, New Hampshire. She loved her second home away from home in Danbury, where Mom and Dad spent many years restoring the house that my grandfather was born in. And of course, in the center of that house was a huge, oversized dining room table for enough room for all of us and for all of their friends. Also, as I mentioned before, one of her other passions was gardening, and and at Rustic Drive a couple summers ago, when my nephew Jake and his bride-to-be Karina first came here, Jake wanted to show Grammy the house. So we're at the end of the long driveway, and the owner of the house kind of was riding his bike, and he was kind of wondering what we were doing, and I explained who I was, and he said, your mom and dad did an incredible job with the gardens. And he said, every season, it's like an explosion of color. And so to this day, it's nice to know that, her legacy lives on the house that they built and the place that she loved, probably the most. Spending time with family was her favorite thing, whether it be burgers on the grill and family dinners, spending a day on the boat at Bassings in the sandbar, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas. All of her favorites, but Christmas is especially her favorite time of year. Starting Monday after Thanksgiving, she and Dad would get out all the Christmas decorations, and all the classic Christmas albums would start playing. Growing up, one of my favorite memories would be coming through the door and smelling the Christmas cookies, baking, and Frank Sinatra belting out the Christmas songs. Mom and I would play our cat and mouse game of me trying to steal the spritz batter out of the refrigerator. She would scold me, but this war was raged for 50 years, and she always let me win. I think she had to start making double and triple the batches because I would just, steal the batter. And eventually, she would have tinfuls of cookies, and we would, as a family or in individuals, we would have plates of cookies to bring to the neighborhood and to family and friends, throughout the area. One of the most treasured traditions was a huge Christmas Eve with our Danforth cousins and the traditional Swedish meatballs, and then heading to Christmas Eve service right here in this church. As time went on, the grandchildren were born. The living room at 18 Rustic Drive wasn't going to be big enough to contain Mom's love of giving on Christmas morning. As a result, Santa would have to leave presents in the game room. In the days leading up to Christmas, Mom would always say, "We're cutting back this year." But we all knew she just couldn't help herself. Her gift was seeing the joy of the faces of those she loved and cherished. Her happiest times were having everyone together. And as Jonathan did mention before, I think Mom's unsung hero awards were her contributions to the Cohasset community in this church as well. They were subtle, very unassuming, and significant. In the early 1980s, she was part of the health committee that introduced health education to our schools, leading to a program and a curriculum and partnerships that have helped shape the youth of Cohasset since then. Also, being a member here at this church for nearly 50 years, she was so involved. I don't know if she started these things or was integral in all of them, but between the Christmas fair, the Strawberry Festival, the yearly quilt show fundraiser, and then being one of the pivotal members of the 1987 search committee. And the hiring of that particular person, has really shaped the youth as well in this town with the Appalachian Service Project. And although she's not responsible for that, I think she played just a key role in bringing that individual to this town. I like to say that I'm the favorite, but Mom's most cherished role was that of being a Grammy. To Derek, Sam, Jake, Toby, Scott, Meg, and Eric. Your lives were always on her mind. She treasured every conversation, every letter, and every visit. Her most joyful memories were of our family gatherings when we were all together, and whether that was in Cohasset or her saving her Social Security money to pay for our trips to our cruises to Alaska and to Canada, just made her, those are the things she looked forward to, and those are the things she loved the most. Not a day went by that she didn't ask about each of you. Seeing your pictures would always bring a smile to her face. We had in her room at Rose Court a digital picture frame, and it got to the point where the puppy pictures were happy, but definitely this little guy Charlie and Sage, her great-granddaughter's picture, even to the last remaining days, her smiles would light up. And although Charlie and Sage and future grandchildren, we got another family member on the way in November. I won't say who. Brittany. Derek and Brittany are going to have a baby in November. Her legacy and the traditions that she created in our family will live with each of you. And the kindness and love will be with you forever. Each of you are her legacy, which is a pretty darn good thing. The last few years were not as Mom would have wished. The care she received from my dad and then for the members at Rose Court was a testament to the impact that she had on those around her. Many people with Alzheimer's and dementia, get very ornery, shall we say. Mom really never got that way, which was a huge, huge blessing for us. There were days that she would be irritated, and then I would go in and do something silly and make her laugh, and we could get her to do what she needed to do. But Mom pretty much always had a smile on her face, and as Meg said, anytime my dad would walk in, you would have thought that was the most magical moment of her life, and it was a real testament to their love. Mom passed away on June 21st. That was 2 days shy of her 88th birthday, and it was 6 days before Mom and Dad's 65th wedding anniversary. I believe in my heart that my dad didn't want any of her birthdays or any of their anniversaries to go past without being together. Their love and devotion for each other is one for the ages. And she gave me a gift the last day of her life, and I'll never forget it. And she was in and out on morphine, just controlling the pain. Breathing was getting more and more difficult. But as many of these things happen, right before Jody and Lori were able to get to Rose Court, Mom gave me one last little kiss on the cheek, as she'd done a million times before. And like I said, I think it was her last gift to me, and I think it was her way of letting me know that she was going to be okay. I'm blessed by the life my mom gave me, and I'm forever grateful to have been able to call her mom. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter and Meg. That was beautiful. This is a chance to share our stories, a brief words of encouragement, a memory, something you'll cherish. I went back to get this microphone, so you don't have to come all the way up front if you don't want to. Just wave your hand and I'll bring it to you. But if you'd like to say something, it's through stories that we do this work, and make yourselves heard. Not easy to do, but And just say your name so everybody knows who you are.
Hi, I'm Leanne. These people already know me. I lost my own mom when she was only 64, and I had a 2-week-old baby in my arms. And Carol took me under her wing as the Grammy that my baby was not going to have. And Joe, of course, as the Grampy, even though my dad was still around, he jumped in too. Because who could resist Joe? And as Meg talked about, the Book of the Month Club, my kids get a book every month, both of them, because another one came a couple years later, and they couldn't wait to open it up. And Grammy Carol and Grandpa Joe were an important part of their life. And I would call Carol, because I didn't have a mama to call, trying to figure out how I was supposed to be a mama. And she would listen, and she would talk, and somehow, by the end of that, I would feel like I had solved something, even though I hadn't solved anything. She had clearly told me what to do, but she made me feel like I had figured it out, because that was her other gift of love, to be able to let you think that you had done it and that you had figured it out, even though she was the one guiding that whole discussion. And my kids will always think of both of them as Grammy Carol and Grampy Joe. And we are better people for having been part of that Sandblom family.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joanne Shannon O'Donnell. I grew up on Rustic Drive. My family, my parents built our house, I think shortly after Carol and Joe built theirs. My family moved in 1961. I was 3 years old. I think Scott was probably an infant, but given I was only 3, I don't remember exactly how old he was. My older sister babysat for the kids as they got older. She was 10 when we moved in. The Rustic Drive neighborhood was an amazing neighborhood to grow up in, and the Sandbloms were the rock of the neighborhood. And with all of our neighbors, we felt our neighbors were family. They certainly were friends, and they were family. Everyone was there for one another. The neighborhood was loaded with kids. It was just amazing. Shortly after we moved in, my father was called back to active duty about 3 or 4 months after we moved in. My mother was left in a brand new house with no lawn yet, with 3 kids while my father was shipped off to Germany for 10 months. Carol and Joe were there for my family because there was no one else in the neighborhood. We were brand new. And from there, the relationship just grew stronger and stronger and stronger. So many memories, Christmas mornings together, we would always visit. Kids outside playing all the time, Joe playing with us lots of times. Carol and my mother were so close. My mother always had a box of graham crackers for Jody in our top shelf of the cookie cabinet. I remember Joe bailing me out on an issue when I was in 11th grade and just gotten my license. Joe came over, I edged the car out of the garage, hit the wall. Joe came up, jacked it up, lifted it up, and just cured it for me. My parents were away, I was staying with them. He was my hero. Carol and my mother were very, very close. And that relationship transcended to me too when I became older. Carol gave me an old Singer touch and sew sewing machine when I left for college. I brought it to college with me. And I still make Swedish lasagna, and it's much better than my husband's.
My name is Beverly Burgess Williams, and my claim to fame is that I am Peter's mother-in-law. And I would just like to say that Joe and Carol always included me in everything. Christmas Eve service, Christmas Eve at their homes, Christmas morning we would all gather together, but probably one of my favorite things to share with you is that one Thanksgiving, and Liz and Pete were dating, and my father and my mother and I were going to a friend's house on the other side of Massachusetts, about an hour and a half away, and we woke up to a snowstorm. And Liz was going to be with Pete's family, and very graciously, Carol and Joe said, "Come on over, we've got plenty of room, we'll put 2 more seats up," and my father, my mother, and I had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and that was the kind of people that Joe and Carol were, and I'm so grateful that I had the time with them that I did.
Thank you all for sharing. As I noted, this is just but one chance for the sharing, a beautiful chance to share like this in this special time when we pause and celebrate. But the truth is, whenever you do something in the spirit that Carol did it, whenever you make extra room at your table, whenever you share a book with a kid, whenever you share who you are with somebody else, and you remember Carol and you pause and maybe tell that story to somebody else, it continues on and on and on. Let us join in our closing hymn, standing as is comfortable to do. It is the insert in the program, and let's sing the first and the third verses.
closing blessing. You can stay standing, but then you can sit for what will be a beautiful postlude. It's good to be together. Through thick and thin, through hard times and good times, we need each other. These stories reflect Carol's commitment to that truth. Always making a space for others, always thinking of others, always giving of herself to others. As a rock, as a person with skills to share, sewing, reading, teaching, sharing with others. So do these things in the spirit that Carol did. Give yourself a timeout if you need it. Smile repeatedly while you've got the strength and mind to do so that if you don't, you'll still smile when your loved ones come in the room. Give hugs. Share, and share some more. When you do these things, you'll do them in the spirit that Carol and Joe lived their lives. And life will be good, and we won't be alone. May it be so. Amen. You may be seated. Please gather downstairs to greet the family in love and share their stories and to enjoy refreshments at the Sandblom and the crafty ladies and friends here at Bradford and the congregation of Crystal House has provided. We'll see you downstairs. This concludes the service. Amen.